Hey, how's it going? This is Dr. August D. Oliveira. For those that don't know me, I teach a little bit on dental implants, a little bit on what's called chairside CAD/CAM, and also a little bit on 3D printing. So I'm in my little geek techie room here. Behind me, you may see this thing here. For those that aren't familiar with the dental world, this is a CNC machine that makes crowns called ZAxis. Not talking about ZAxis today, though. Today I'm going to be talking about this little printer over here. We move it right over. This one is called the Phrozen Shuffle XL. The company is called Phrozen, spelled P-H-R-O-Z-E-N. Funny name. No relationship at all to the Disney movie. But this company makes really good LCD 3D printers. So I made a video on the Phrozen make for my buddy Edgar. Now I've got another friend, Dr. Usa, who is contemplating buying a Phrozen XL. She has two different offices, and she has the Form 2 printer. And maybe I can swing the camera around so you can see the Form 2. Keep on going, keep on going, keep on going. There's the Form 2 right over there. So you may notice I have a few printers here in the office. I've got Form 2s, I've got Moonray printers, I've got Phrozen printers. And one question that always gets asked is, hey, there are these workhorse printers for dentistry like the Form 2 and like the Moonray, but there's these cheaper printers coming on the market that are LCD based. And if you guys don't know what an LCD printer is all about, an LCD printer literally has a phone or an iPad screen. Underneath it is a UV light, no different than what we use in dentistry to cure our composites, and it uses that array of UV lights under the phone screen to make a model. Because the LCD or the phone screen or iPad screen is so much cheaper than a projector or a laser used in the Form 2 or the Moonray printer, these are really, really inexpensive. So a Form 2 printer is about $3,500, a Moonray printer is $4,000, but this Phrozen Shuffle XL right over here is pretty darn cool. It's $1,200, and there's some cool benefits to this. Now, a real common question though is, which one do I buy? I gotta tell you, I'm a little bit torn. Just because the Moonray and the Form 2 printers are such easy to use printers. They have software that directly integrates with the wireless or networked capabilities of the printer to make it really no harder to use than a regular inkjet printer. These Phrozen printers and other LCD printers, you have to jump through a few hoops. So I think they make a great secondary printer. I would still recommend the Form 2 or the Moonray as your primary printer. But let me just show you some of the cool benefits of this. So if we come over here, and I'll get off the screen for you, we can see that there's some neat things about this. There's a small window here that has some UV protective plastic so you can look in, but for the most part, this printer is pretty blacked out. And when we open up the hood, there's a couple of cool things that we can see. As I mentioned in my last video, Phrozen printers are really, really strong. Everything's made out of milled aluminum. You can see how sturdy this ZAxis is here. But what I really like about this printer, and excuse me as I pop around here and take things out, is the build plate. So if we unscrew the top here, you can see really how big that build plate is. In comparison, let me just go ahead and reach over and grab a Moonray. Hey guys, this is August D. Oliveira again. Sorry about cutting the video off. I was filming for about 5 minutes and I didn't know it was on. So I'm back and I've got different build plate sizes. So let me show you, first off, the Phrozen Shuffle XL build plate. So this is 120 millimeters by 190 millimeters. So this is a really big build plate. It has the same surface area as the Form 2 build plate. So the Form 2 build plate is 150 by 150. It is a square, and this is a rectangle. Don't think that really makes a difference unless you're printing a fairly long model, which helps it out. Conversely, we have the Moonray build plate. And you can see the Moonray build plate is a bit smaller. This, I believe, is 120 by 90. You know, it's a lot smaller. You can still print a lot quicker though on the Moonray. So again, this is sort of my staff's favorite printer. But anyways, we're here to talk about the Shuffle. Let me show you some things that I did on the Shuffle. So today we're going to be printing a T-Rex skull, so pretty cool. If you go on Thingiverse.com, this is from MakerBot, and it's a really highly detailed skull. So it articulates with these little TMJs here, and it's kind of a fun print to do. We're going to be doing it in the Snow White resin. But more importantly is accuracy. So there's a number of LCD printers on the market, like the Anycubic Photon and like the Wanhao Duplicator, that are pretty accurate. So if you print in the middle of the build plate, something one model at a time, whether it's a surgical guide or a night guard, or maybe an orthodontic model, you can be pretty guaranteed that it's going to be accurate. But once you get to the periphery, that's where things kind of get dicey. So I wanted to show you something. So this is a model and a laser sintered bridge. So this bridge is actually made out of cobalt chrome. It was made by a process called selective laser melting, which is a way of taking titanium or cobalt chrome powder and literally fusing it with a laser. So this was from the STL of the bridge, and they should fit well. Now, I've been using this as a way of testing accuracy. So when I put the bridge on the model, all the margins are closed. Cool, right? Well, what's really cool is I printed a model in the center and a model way out in the corner to test if there was any change in accuracy, and it wasn't. This is the model from the periphery. So we've got a super accurate. At 75 microns in the XY versus 47 microns in the XY with the Phrozen Shuffle, I still think the Phrozen Shuffle is better for dies and lab work, but I wanted to test it. So in a software called ExoCAD, I did a implant analog and a die for a crown prep. So getting these dies to pop in and out is actually pretty tough to do, and this fit great. I did have to bump up the spacer. So in ExoCAD, the space between the die and the model defaults at 100 microns. This I had to bump up to 200 microns to fit. Whereas with the Phrozen Shuffle, I left it at 100 microns and it fit perfectly. But what really blows my mind, and it's tough to see here, but you'll see a little metal screw here, and on the other side, you'll see a little implant. So that's an implant analog for you non-dentists out there. And these are really tough to print. Consistently on the Moonray in the Form 2, I cannot print implant analog models. This did it perfectly. It's a nice tight fit. This is an NT trading analog, which makes a screw-in base, which makes it really easy to make sure that your implant analog is seated. So this can definitely do dies. I got both, so I would probably prefer to use the Phrozen Shuffle instead of the Phrozen Shuffle XL for dies. Sorry about that, for some reason the video cut out. What the real reason people are buying these printers in dentistry though is to make your own aligners. Invisalign's been king of the aligner business forever. ClearCorrect has come out in the past, but now there's a lot of companies out there like SmileDirect or Candid that are marketing directly to the consumer, which is driving the price of aligners down. So to stay competitive, docs are buying printers and making their own aligners. The way that we make an aligner is we print a model, we do a pressure form sheet on it, and then manually trim it. We're not at a point of direct printing aligners. However, a lot of people want to get into it and they want to get their feet wet without buying an expensive printer. I will say the Phrozen Shuffle XL does this quite well. So we printed a bunch of vertical models. Yes, I still use supports. on my models, and we were able to get about 12 models on the build plate in one shot. So very, very cool. So we're going to break away and talk a little bit about ZAxis leveling, and after that we're going to talk about the software. Before I go, I'm a little out of sequence here, so I'm sorry. I wanted to kind of articulate why I think the Form 2 and the Moonray are great first printers. So the thing with this is you have to set up your model in one program, then take it to another program, match it to the correct resin profile, and send it to the printer. The Form 2, the Moonray, and a lot of other printers do this all in one software, and it makes it a lot easier for dentists and staff members to do it. Okay, I'm back and I have my trusty hex tool. So I wanted to talk to you a little bit about Z-axis leveling. So first off, what's the Z-axis? So I'm going to turn over to the printer over here, and the Z-axis is this little screw that goes up and down. The build plate attaches to motors that are in there. Now, if you think about this, when we're 3D printing, we're adding layer over layer of basically flowable composite. If those layers aren't completely flat, then they'll come out kind of weird or they won't stick together. Now, one of the reasons why I recommend the Form 2 and the Moonray as primary office printers or printers for first time dentists that are first-time printers is that we don't have to worry about leveling the Z-axis. It automatically checks that for you. With these LCD printers, you do have to, and it's really pretty simple. Now, I'm sorry you can't see the touch screen, but I'll just kind of talk through how we do the Z-axis leveling. So on the touch screen, we click on the little gear, and if we go to Z-axis, we can go ahead and click this little recycle button. And it's basically going to walk you through the process. We're going to, on the build plate, there's little screws that hold it in. We're going to unscrew those, allow the build plate to passively go down, hold it down, and tighten it. So I'm going to kind of turn to the screen, so I apologize, and unscrew these. So these four hex bolts over here, we just unscrew them. So that build plate should wiggle pretty freely. If you look on the screen, it tells you to do that. You hit next, and now this is going to descend into the home position. We're going to hold it down. You've got to do it a little differently than some of the other printers. It's a really big build plate, and bigger build plates have sort of a harder time maintaining this correct Z-axis calibration or angle. So as it goes down all the way, we're going to hold down the build plate and tighten the screws, almost like you tighten the screws on a car. We're going to start on one side, flip to the contralateral side, and do the same with the other screws. So it's taken its own sweet time. So in the meantime, maybe I want to talk to you about a different resin. So we're going to be using Snow White resin for the T-Rex skull. And what you want to do is you really want to agitate this resin. Now, the more expensive resins, like what you would use in the Form 2 and the Moonray, probably run you between $150 and $200. This is fun to do Snow White. It's about $63 a liter, so it's about half the price. It's a great, really nice matte finish, super white resin, but it comes out of solution a lot, so we'll keep on shaking it here. So our build plate's down. What I'm going to do is I'm going to start in sort of the screw closest to me, really hold down this build plate with one hand and tighten this little bolt. Now I'm going to go to the opposite corner and do the same. Give you an angle here. Next I'm going to go to the front. And come over to the contralateral side. Cool. So we're done. We're going to tell the printer we're done. It's going to raise the Z-axis and allow us to put our resin in. So I'm going to just keep shaking this and hope it doesn't come out of solution. What I've found is for regular dental printing, no big deal. This works great. when you get into these really big models, I worry about it coming out of solution. So we printed the sort of the maxilla portion of the skull, and now we're going to print the mandible. And so it's raised up almost enough so I can get to it. I'm going to fill the resin vat about 3/4 of the way. Okay, hey guys, so I wanted to talk a little bit about some of the software that we use with the Phrozen Make XL, and just want to also talk a little bit about Thingiverse. If you're not familiar with Thingiverse, it's thingiverse.com. Google it, it'll come up. Thingiverse has a lot of really kind of cool toys and sort of things that you can fix broken things with. It's really a cool site, and it's completely free. So we're going to download the T-Rex skull. So I'm just going to go ahead and type in T-Rex and see what comes up. Scroll through here, and they've got some funny versions of the T-Rex. And this is the guy right here. So one thing that's really cool about Thingiverse is a lot of the times they'll give you the models already pre-positioned on the build plate. So we already printed this sort of upper member or maxilla of the T-Rex. We're going to be printing now this lower member. And so you can just go ahead and download. I've already downloaded the file and scaled it because I wanted to make it a little bit bigger. So if you saw my last video on the Phrozen Make, this is called Chi2 or Chi2 Slicer. It's sort of like the Form 2 or Moonray softwares. They allow you to put your model on the build plate. What you may notice here is my build plate looks pretty big. If you have this set for another printer, the X is 190 millimeters and the Y is 120. So we're going to go ahead and add our model. I'm going to show you some dental stuff first, and then we'll go ahead and put in the T-Rex mandible. So we just go ahead and click Open File, and on my messy desktop, I'll try to find an aligner model. And so this is an aligner model that we got from Exceed Ortho. And Dr. Rick Ferguson taught me a cool trick. I did not know how to lay my models flat on the build plate. I didn't know that if you right-click and set current face to bottom, it'll go ahead and flatten it out for you. So now we have this flat on the build plate and we can print it. But we don't want to print that. We want to print our T-Rex mandible. So we'll go ahead and find our mandible, and looks like it's right here. It's already set up so that it has a flat to print on. We do not need supports for this. So if we were using the Form 2 or the Moonray, from this screen we would be able to print directly. Unfortunately, we have to jump through a couple of hoops to use the Phrozen printer. So we're going to save this. So save as in an STL file. So we'll call this lower jaw Phrozen, and save that on our desktop. And now we have to access the printer. So the printer, if you look at the front of the screen, it'll give you an IP address. So if you look on your printer, it'll say which IP address this is. So in our case here, our printer is at 192.168.0.72. Once you enter it in, when you're using Google Chrome, it'll always kind of pop up when you type 19. So we're going to go to plates, and now in this section here we're going to send the model to the printer. So we'll hit add, and we're going to find our T-Rex Phrozen model file and lower jaw Phrozen. We're going to select our profile. Now, I only have Phrozen Gray in this. Phrozen Gray looks like it worked pretty well with the maxilla, even though it was fun to do Snow White. So we're going to go ahead and submit that. It's going to upload, and you'll see here that it's starting to process. What I like to do is click on Layers and just make sure that my model is within the confines of the build plate. Sometimes you can get things screwed up, so you can type in 190 instead of 120 when you're setting up Chi2 Slicer, but it looks like we're doing good. So we'll come back over here, and we'll go back to plates, and we'll go ahead and hit print from start. It's going to ask you if you want to, and you hit OK. So now the printer is going to go ahead and do this. It's going to take about 7 hours to print. This is it for the video. I won't have you wait that long. But stay tuned. We'll come out with some more videos for some of the other printers.